Now, even a small motorcycle collection like I have requires more maintenance than you think it does. To the people that only own one or two motorcycles, as you increase the amount of motorcycles, the amount of maintenance you need to do goes up dramatically. Now we've got a little bit of time today, and I thought I'd put on a video what goes into doing a normal changing of the chain. Now every one of these bikes, and I have the manual for every one of them, suggests a different way of checking the chain for replacement, where the location is on the swing arm, various other ways, and I've put some of the ways I've checked. I have a gauge, but we've determined that we're at the point where when you adjust the chain to its tightest spot, the spot that's looser is just too loose. And we've done that already on a separate video for this motorcycle, and today we're going to change the chain. And I'm going to show some of the other little things I do while I have the chain off the motorcycle. Now, it's always very, very handy if you have a rear stand. If you don't, you need to come up with some way of raising the back wheel off the bike. I guess in a pinch you could do it without raising the wheel off the bike, but because we're going to be spinning the back wheel several times, it would really be inconvenient not to have the stand, or to be able to use a jack, or somehow just to be able to do this. That's what I need to be able to do. That's what I want to be able to do, because one of the things I'm going to be doing, see, a lot of people would start out, and there's plenty of videos on YouTube showing how to do this. I don't need to replicate it. You cut the chain with a chain breaker, snap on the new chain, run it through, bring it out, cut the link, put the link in, especially if you don't have a press link. If you have a master link with your bike like this, we want a press link in this bike. The master link not quite as strong with the little cotter pin on the end. But the whole purpose of this is that I want to make it as easy as possible to do this job. And having a good quality chain breaker, number one, having a stand, and these stands you can get them. I paid $38 for this one on eBay. Just having a few quality tools, when you think of the cost of what they charge you in a dealership to do this, to be able to do it yourself is a real money saver. And then the other side thing is, you know it's done right. So first of all, if you're going to replace the chain, be aware there are several levels of quality of chain. This is a Regina chain. It's a relatively good quality. I got this from Vlad. I'll try to put the information on his business so he can you can get a plug for him anyway. He was very helpful in getting me this and other motorcycle parts. But this is the key thing you need, and I keep this in a little container. It's a chain breaker. It's a good quality one. All of the good quality ones, relatively easy to use. They give good directions, relatively simple to use, and what's a good idea is I always save the extra chain links. When I order a chain that's 2 or 3 links too big, always save the extra links. You never know when you're going to need one. Now this chain breaker came from Motion Pro, and it's I always save the directions, because if I ever need to order a part, I lose a part. The directions are kind of easy to figure out, pretty simple. It may be complicated the first time, but if you look at the directions and read them, it goes step by step what you need to do and what accessories you need to put into the little vise to break the chain, number one, to press the link in, number two, and then to squeeze the pin. Now another thing, I have a selection of old towels. Anytime I'm at a garage sale, I see towels. They're usually a nickel a piece or something. I buy up the old towels. The reason is, on a day like today, I'm going to be using diesel fuel, kerosene, something to clean the area where the countershaft sprocket is. And when I do, I don't want it dripping on my rug. In the past, I've tried to put a pan underneath it. The towel always works better. And also, and then at the end of the day, if it's really terrible, for 50 cents, just throw it away. Don't even keep it in your shop, because anything you get diesel fuel on smells like diesel fuel 10 years later. But it really does the best job of cleaning. And in this case, now not everybody agrees. If you go to a dealer, some dealers don't clean it at all. Some do a spotty job. If you do it yourself, you know it's going to be done, and it's going to be clean when you're finished with the job. And you can at least know that you don't have a bunch of rocks and salt and sand and everything in there. And usually this is the first time this side of the engine has ever come apart. So I know there's going to be monsters in there. I've really laid out in my mind, I know this is not going to be a 5-minute job to do that cleanup, but that is part of the job. Having a new chain on the bike, having that all clean, we'll be good for another 15-20,000 miles. Now another thing you might have heard, and I found it not to be totally true, is you're always supposed to replace the sprockets with the chain. Well, you know what? I think it's probably a good idea, but I put that in a class with other things that I think are a little bit overkill. A bike with, you know, this doesn't even have 20,000 miles on it yet. I don't think it needs sprockets, but we're going to check them, and if it does, obviously we're going to get them. And a lot of times you can save money by just getting a whole chain kit, the chain and the sprockets at the same time. But for us right now, we're just going to change out the chain. Now with the side cover off, and this is the reason I like to do the cleaning. You can see all this crap that's in here, the chain lube, chain wax, whatever. All of the stuff that comes out of here. Well, before we put that back, and when Glenn did his Ducati up here, I remember him thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff in there, and we cleaned it up and he felt real good about it. Well, you know, I know I feel better when, oh, there's leaves in there, there's garbage in there. I mean, this is a lot of miles of stuff. So first thing we're going to do is clean that all up. I'll get my little jar of diesel fuel and a brush and start working on it. And it sounds like this might be overkill. I like to clean it before I even take the old chain off. Now again, diesel fuel has you know, not a pleasant smell. Not unless, I guess, unless you're a truck driver or something, or a truck driving woman. I don't know. You know, we can't be prejudiced here. But anyway, I do want to just let this sit. I'll go have a cup of coffee while this is sitting, and when I come back out, I'll be able to use some compressed air, some rags, get this relatively clean. But most of it's going to get done by just letting this soak in. And you know, the diesel fuel is about $3 a gallon. You can keep a milk jug of it and one of these turkey pans for doing your cleanup. And what I'll do is, while this is sitting, I'll take the other half. I'll take this piece here and just get some diesel fuel down in here. Doesn't hurt the paint at all. And not everybody would do this, and I guarantee you most motorcycle dealers are not going to do this because it takes time and it's a dirty job. But if you have your precious collector bikes, or you just like to have a nice, let that sit. And let me just show this. That part can be sitting soaking. This part is going right into a turkey pan, and I have underneath it a rag. And like I said, this, it's just, if it sits for 4 or 5 minutes, compressed air will just blow most of that right out. Another little trick, that old paint stick that we use for doing cleaning and stuff, the old microfibers, the oldest ones, and usually I throw them away when I'm done with anything with diesel fuel. These allow me to get in all these little cracks and crevices while the compressor's building up some pressure. If there's some really, really heavy stuff, what I'll do in addition to the diesel fuels, a little bit of carburetor cleaner on it. The reason I want to do this ahead of time is I don't want any of this dirt getting on the new chain. And the cleaner I can get that area, I got the other part soaking, the cleaner I can get this, the better this chain install is going to ultimately be. Now, I am really fussy about getting everything clean before I put it all back together. This was really a mess 5-10 minutes ago. It's really, that's, you'd sell that for a brand new part. But anyway, it's just a question of now being patient, picking away at this, using some compressed air, some whatever I need to do, and using that stick. This is such a good tool. That stick to just get in all the angles, and then the last thing, just try to get a nice microfiber in there and clean it all up. As soon as I'm satisfied that that's clean, I'll be able to break the chain and thread the new chain through there. And once I'm satisfied that that's all as clean as I can make it, imagine, you look at all the stuff that's in the bottom of this pan, and you're going to send a brand new, $100+ chain through that dirt bath. I don't think so. I don't think so. I like doing it this way. Yeah, boy, look at all the stuff that came out of there. Oh, like you do an oil change and you look at the oil and you see all those little metal chips sometimes, and wow. Well, just think of it this way. All that stuff isn't going for a ride. And all my new chain is not going to go right through there and right through there. And what a mess. And this gets even worse if you use petroleum-based chain lubes. Chain wax is bad enough. Anything oil-based just is like flypaper. It picks up the dirt. It makes grinding compound. You could actually boil this all down and make pretty good grinding compound out of it. Okay, now most of the cleanup done, not all of it, but I'm going to have to clean up around the back area here. I tried to neaten things up. The next step is going to be to basically get the rear wheel loose. Whoop. This is where having that stand comes in really handy. Now, what I want to do is I want to loosen the chain adjuster so the wheel slide. I want the wheel to slide all the way forward before I break the chain. What that's going to do is allow me to get the links. I don't want to have an extra link in the chain, so I run out of chain adjustment. I want it to be as far forward as it can be. Figure out how many links I need. Break the links, and then have it that the chain adjuster is starting as far forward as reasonable. Now, of course, read the directions. Your chain breaker may be different. This is a ProMotion one. Now, Pete at Circle Cycle told me something years ago that was really important. Buy a good chain breaker. You buy the cheesy one, what always happens is the pin breaks. Now, I've assembled this for the chain breaking operation, but I have a couple of tips. Things that'll work. You see at the end, the pin is going to push the other pin out. The pin is the most vulnerable part of the chain breaker. When you buy a cheap one, this pin breaks. But there's a way you can make that a lot easier. And what I do, I take a Dremel tool and grind just enough of that lip away so that I'm not putting a lot of stress on this. Because at this point, I don't want this to bend or break. Now, if you do break it, and I have broken some, you can take a drill rod and grind it and do whatever you have to do to make it exactly the right length. But it's easier if you don't break the pin. Now, I do remember when Tim was here, we were working on a chain. It's a funny story while I'm putting this together. And by the way, the directions are really good for this. But what'll make this job a lot easier, put WD-40 on everything, put a clean pair of gloves that aren't full of all kerosene and everything, just to make it easier. Once you screw this in, what we want to do is pinch a chain link. I'm going to try to demo this. Once this is going to pinch a chain link, then by turning this, I'm pushing that pin in, and I'm going to push the pin right out the other side. But that's basically how we're going to put this onto the chain link. This is going to make it that we've pinched a link in there, and then this rod, as I turn it, is going to push the pin through here and push the old pin out. But again, if you grind that side plate a little bit, you just save your wear and tear on a chain. Even though you don't have to. I always look to make things easier. This work is hard enough. You don't have to find ways to make it you have to find a way to make it any harder, that's for sure. Oh, I pulled the plug out. Smart. Nice, Wendy. Now, the only reason for doing that would be to save wear and tear on a chain cutter. There's also, and when Tim was here, he was getting frustrated. I don't know why he wasn't familiar with using a chain cutter. I said, come on, and I just took my cutoff wheel and cut the chain. He didn't think that was funny. You don't need to really do that. And by the way, a Dremel tool will cut a chain just as well too. So all that does is make this job a little bit easier for the chain cutter. And you don't run the risk you're going to break that pin, which if you do, you can buy a spare pin, again, from Motion Pro. They sell them separately, or you just make one out of a piece of drill rod. In the interest of making this as informative as possible, obviously now as I tighten this wrench, that pin is going to get pushed out and come out the other side of the tool, and we will have broken the chain. Now I took the tool off because I wanted to show just what happens. That pin is now pushing this pin out. When it's pushed out all the way, we're done. Now with the chain safely in the garbage, we're ready to clean the back end, the sprocket, the wheel, and then at the next point will be to thread the new chain through. And I have a little trick that might be worth sharing. I'm not sure. We're going to give it a try, but I'm looking around for anything that I know, for as an example, that all the grease on the inside of the swing arm, whenever you do a tire change, and I'm looking any spot that I can get it. I can see right now, I can get my hand in there and clean that up. Down in there, I can clean that up. With the chain missing, it just makes some of the cleanup on this a little bit easier. Now, especially what I like to do is clean the teeth. I got a razor blade. I scraped off all the dried up chain lube that was around the edge. Really like to make this a nice install if I can. And because we've kept this chain pretty well lubed, the sprockets don't show anywhere at all. They look brand new, in fact. Now, threading a new chain in. This is the trick, the best trick I've found for doing this. Whenever you're trying to do this, the chain constantly jumps off the sprocket. If you take a zip tie where you think you're going to have to cut the chain, obviously we're going to get one more link out of that. See, and always buy a chain a couple links extra, just in case, because you never know. They tell you it's 110 links, and now we have this set up, the part of it that presses the pin on. Once we press the pin on, of course, then we have to change out the tool. And again, each one is different. You just read the directions on this and then mushroom out the end of these two links. Then adjust the swing arm and we're going to be in good shape. Adjust the chain length and get that it's sitting nice and straight, and we'll be good to go. And I just want to show, this is the tool and the anvil that goes on this side. There's two separate things that mushroom out. They just put a little mushroom on the master link on this end. So keep in mind, the instructions for each chain are different. In fact, with this Regina chain, they gave me some tricky instructions in some foreign language, but luckily I don't have to learn French or whatever, Italian, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to mushroom that out, and we'll be ready to adjust the chain. But this tool is worth having if you're going to ride motorcycles and do your own maintenance, because we have used it over and over and over and over and over, and every time I use it, having a good quality tool, it pays for itself. Now with the chain final adjusted, everything pretty clean. Boy, I'll tell you, that's even looks nicer. Now another thing I've noticed, and a lot of people don't even really feel things at this level, I've noticed whenever I put a new chain on a bike, there's a little bit less vibration, because the chain is, when it's going through that stiff part, weak, it's sending some vibration that you really don't have. This chain is equally, well, let's see how long it stays that way. That's the whole point. If you don't lube it, it doesn't stay that way. Boy, everything is so nice and smooth. Now, the only thing left is with this, when you put a new chain on, it's got the grease, the factory grease on it, and that's going to wind up being on the back wheel the first time you go over about 70 miles an hour. But everything in there is about as clean as a new bike would be. Muffler's cleaned up. I hope that's going to give us another 15,000-20,000 miles of enjoyable riding. Now, as soon as we do get a test ride, it's too late in the day because we were babysitting this afternoon. I'm going to put on the video, maybe on the next future video anyway, a way you can tell if your swing arm is in perfect adjustment, your back axle. What will happen is as this chain wears in, the grease here is going to get black, and as it wears out, sooner or later, of course, one side or the other side of that barrel is going to get shiny. And whatever side is shiny, that's telling you that you're out of alignment just a tiny bit. If that shiny spot is right in the middle, well, and this is an old trick from way back when, well, you know you're pretty close. But if that shiny spot is all off to one side, you know that your chain, the side that's, in other words, if the shiny spot is here, what you need to do is get the axle centered. And you can pretty much, it's a fine-tuning thing, but it's free to get it right. And if you have a belt sander, you know how critical it is. The two wheels on each side of the belt, you just turn that wheel a 64th of a turn, and the belt will start running off to the other side, or the belt will run to this side or to that side. Well, it's the same thing with a chain. When the two sprockets are not in good alignment, one side of the chain wears more than the other. And that's just a small trick that I remember from my late friend Kenny Augustine taught me that. Now, as soon as we do get a test ride, it's too late in the day because we were babysitting this afternoon. I'm going to put on the video, maybe on the next future video anyway, a way you can tell if your swing arm is in perfect adjustment, your back axle. What will happen is as this chain wears in, the grease here is going to get black, and as it wears out, sooner or later, of course, one side or the other side of that barrel is going to get shiny. And whatever side is shiny, that's telling you that you're out of alignment just a tiny bit. If that shiny spot is right in the middle, well, and this is an old trick from way back when, well, you know you're pretty close. But if that shiny spot is all off to one side, you know that your chain, the side that's, in other words, if the shiny spot is here, what you need to do is get the axle centered. And you can pretty much, it's a fine-tuning thing, but it's free to get it right. And if you have a belt sander, you know how critical it is. The two wheels on each side of the belt, you just turn that wheel a 64th of a turn, and the belt will start running off to the other side, or the belt will run to this side or to that side. Well, it's the same thing with a chain. When the two sprockets are not in good alignment, one side of the chain wears more than the other. And that's just a small trick that I remember from my late friend Kenny Augustine taught me that. Now, another nice little tip you can use while you have the bike apart. I just always have a brush with a little bit of wheel bearing grease on it. The little tabs, I guess is the right word, tangs. I try to keep just a little bit of wheel bearing grease on them for a reason. It's a really good reason. A little bit into the bushing, just a little bit. Now, the reason is on all older bikes that I've restored, these bushings are very prone to breaking off. And it's just terrible when they break off. It can be very frustrating, in fact. But now, with a little bit of that grease on there, they'll not only go in, look at it, just slides right in. They'll also release a lot better. And when they freeze in, and as an example, when the bushing gets dried out after 20 or 30 years, obviously this is not an old bike, but when you do have everything getting hard and dried out, well, the downside of that whole thing is, there we go. The downside is those little tabs tend to break off, so that may be a little tip you can put in a bank too. And whenever I do maintenance, I always want to write down the mileage, and I always put the date on it too. I always want to keep track of the mileage. Now, that chain had almost 17,000 on it, and when I had tested it, it was coming up on a limit, so I think realistically we probably could have gotten 20,000 out of it. But then that last couple of thousand, and in this case it would be riding in the middle of the winter, It's like trying to use windshield wipers up until the metal scrapes your windshield. This is really making this adds a nice, actually it even looks nice on a black motorcycle to have that gold chain, but it's a high quality chain. It might even last more than 20,000, who knows. And I would highly recommend everybody keep track of when they did all their oil filters and maintenance and all of the little things that happen. Well, it's very, very handy. And in my case, I have several books, all of these little things that I try to keep track of. So the objective is, because my brain isn't good enough to keep track of the maintenance schedules on all these bikes and keep them running nice, looking clean, and most of all safe. So I'll end the video by saying I hope you've enjoyed the presentation and picked up some good information if you're a home mechanic like I am. And most of all, hope I've inspired you to do some maintenance on your own bike. Keep track of it, enjoy it, and ride safe always. And thanks for watching. Hey, and just one final thought I always think. As we all get older and older, I always encourage people to have a passion. Not only have a passion, but have a project going all the time. And in my case, I think those projects contribute a lot to it. Feeling and being as young as you can be here at 71 years old. I still enjoy every minute in this garage. Hey, and again, thanks for watching. I wanted to thank Vlad, who supplied the chain for this project. And as everybody that watches the videos knows, Vlad has a great collection of bikes. Some real exotic stuff, Benellis, Ducatis, whatever he's got, I don't even know. BMWs that come from Japan, who knows what he's got. Anyway, he does have a nice collection, but he also has this business that I've bought parts from, and he's got some great prices and some great stuff. And you can always, and if all else fails, just call him up. The phone number is listed on the website. And I want to personally thank Vlad for, hey, a couple of years of friendship, restoring some of his bikes. You can look on our channel and see his Benelli and, I don't know, his, Moto Guzzi, what else he has. My head spins, these guys have so many bikes. Anyway, this is, and it's not Moto World, it's Moto World Online. Anyway, Vlad, again, thanks. And since our little channel is now over 1 million hits, sooner or later we're going to be getting advertising offers. So, hey, again, thanks for watching.